Today on Upfront, the fate of Foxconn in Wisconsin. Is a deal that breaks even in 2043 a good one for taxpayers? I'll ask two of the architects of the deal, Administration Secretary Scott Neitzel and Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation CEO Mark Hogan. Plus, is the Foxconn bill a sure bet to pass? Jeff Mayers of WisPolitics on the bill's chances in the state assembly and Senate. And another Democrat joins the race for governor. State Representative Dana Wachs on why he says he's something different.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. September 30th, that is the deadline for Wisconsin to finalize a deal with the Taiwanese tech giant Foxconn. The package is $3 billion in taxpayer incentives. It's designed to bring a huge Foxconn plant to southeastern Wisconsin. The plant would employ 3,000 people to start and as many as 13,000 down the road. It could also mean thousands of supplier and construction jobs. The state assembly is moving forward with amendments. It could even vote on the bill later this week, but the Senate has been a bit more cautious, especially after a Legislative Fiscal Bureau analysis said the state's break-even point on the deal would be 2043 at the earliest. We're talking more about the Foxconn deal today with two people who helped put it together. Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Secretary Mark Hogan and Department of Administration Secretary Scott Neitzel. Gentlemen, good to have you on the program today.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll begin with Secretary Neitzel. Break-even point of 2043. When people heard that, there were questions raised. Speak to the people of Wisconsin. How is that a good deal when we won't break even on this until 2043?
Well, I think you have to step back and just look at the bigger picture here. We're talking about 13,000 high-paying, family-supporting jobs in Wisconsin. That's an average salary that we're projecting of just shy of $54,000. And that's just the direct jobs that we're talking about. Then we're going to have the indirect and the induced jobs across the whole state. You're going to have a supply chain. This is creating a whole new high-tech manufacturing ecosystem in the state of Wisconsin that not only hasn't existed in the state of Wisconsin, it has not existed in the United States. So there are going to be benefits beyond what was just in that report that are very hard to quantify using kind of historic models when you're looking at something of this magnitude that is so transformative, creating an ecosystem for high-tech manufacturing right here in Wisconsin.
Follow up on something Secretary Neitzel just said. He said 13,000 jobs. President Trump, when this was announced, said 3,000 jobs with the potential. There are people in the state legislature who are a bit concerned about just exactly how many jobs will be created and by when. Is there language in the legislation or in the deal that says X number of jobs will be created by this date, therefore you get state taxpayer dollars?
Mike, there's nothing in the legislation around that, and we're currently negotiating the contract with the company, so we'll be going through that process as we talk about it. But our understanding with the company is $10 billion investment in the state of Wisconsin, 13,000 jobs, and we will provide $2.85 billion in tax credits to the company.
Will there at some point, do you anticipate, be language that will spell out job creation goals and target dates for those goals?
Yes. In any of our contracts that we sign with enterprise zones, which would be the larger ones like in Amazon, for example, there are guideposts that we establish within the terms of the contract. How much money are they going to spend over a period of time? How are they going to employ people over a period of time? And we will incorporate that based on the company's plans and their commitment to get to that 13,000 employee level.
But here again, the way we set this up is that the company has to invest dollars or hire employees before they get a dime of state incentive money. So it is a pay-as-they-grow, performance-based incentive.
Are you concerned at all about who might be working there? For example, there have been some people in the assembly who said, we'd like to see language that would seek to have Foxconn give preference to Wisconsin workers and Wisconsin vendors. Could that ultimately be part of the final deal?
Well, what we've seen in working with the company, and Mark can comment on this too, is that they are very committed to being here in Wisconsin. They are very committed to being a part of the Wisconsin business community. They want to make this ecosystem good for the whole state. We've already seen that where they've entered into a memorandum of understanding with Rockwell right here in Milwaukee, and also with the ginseng growers up in the north central part of the state. So they are looking to be an integral part of the Wisconsin business community.
But are there guarantees, or do you expect there will be guarantees of the percentage, for example, of Wisconsin workers who would be employed at this new plant?
Well, I think just the reality is that there are going to be, if you look at other large employers in the Racine-Kenosha area, usually about 90 to 95% of those employees live in Wisconsin. So I think here again, we are very committed, the company is very committed to making sure that there's work for all Wisconsin companies, looking at the supply chain, both drain construction and then for employment after the plant is up and running.
Just to follow up on that, the reason Foxconn is coming to the state of Wisconsin are all of the things, the pro-business legislation that has been passed over the last 6 to 7 years. We wouldn't be in this position if we didn't have right to work, for example. We wouldn't be on that list of site selectors looking at Wisconsin as a possible location. And so to answer your question about language in the legislation or language in the contract, we wouldn't look to do that because that really would run counter to the pro-business policies that have been incorporated in the state.
Do you think, though, that you would be protecting taxpayers by insisting on that language?
People that work in the state of Wisconsin pay taxes to Wisconsin. So one of the misnomers that's out there is that Illinois residents that work in Wisconsin don't pay taxes in Wisconsin. That's not true. They do pay taxes in Wisconsin. Clearly, we want them to live in Wisconsin, but when you're talking about 10,000 construction jobs, you're talking about 13,000 ongoing jobs. The fact of the matter is we will have to recruit from outside of Wisconsin, and our goal, our intent, clearly, is to have those people work and live in Wisconsin.
Secretary Neitzel, what do you say to critics of this deal who worry about the environment? They say, we're giving Foxconn a lot of preferential treatment here. They don't have to abide by some of the same rules that other companies have to abide by. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, here again, that's kind of a misnomer.
In what sense?
Well, they will still have to meet every requirement for air, water, hazardous waste, and solid waste. All we're doing is streamlining some of the upfront paperwork.
Like a DNR, environmental impact statement, they won't have to do. Correct.
They won't have to, but that doesn't relieve them from anything as far as meeting all the environmental obligations that are in the statute. Also, when on the wetlands issue, they will still be subject to federal wetlands regulation, and on the state wetlands, if there's any wetlands that have to be filled in, they have to replace those at a ratio of 2 acres for every 1 acre that is filled in, which is actually higher than the current law, which says 1.2 to 1.
Let me just walk through one other part of this deal so that people at home truly understand when we talk about the tax incentives, how this works. We saw numbers from the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, and they say that, you know, in 2024 or something like that, the state is paying Foxconn $312 million. Those are big numbers. How does that work? Is that truly state taxpayer dollars? Help us better understand what we're talking about as part of this deal.
So not to get too much into the weeds, but what will happen is, as Scott said before, not a dollar of taxpayer money goes out before the company spends money. So they will start the process of hiring people. They will start the process of building the plant. At the end of each year, they will submit the information on the wages paid and also the capital expenditures incurred. We'll verify that information, and then we certify it, and we give them a certification, which they then turn over to the Department of Revenue for either crediting against their taxes, or they will receive what's called a refundable credit.
And you've both heard this. You've been busy doing what you do and trying to put the finishing touches on this deal. But I'm sure you've read some of the criticism, and it sort of goes along the lines of Wisconsin has given away the store on this deal. Let me ask a very simple question. Could you have driven a harder bargain in the negotiations with Foxconn?
No, I don't believe so. We didn't meet the number that they asked for. That's the bottom line. And when we looked at it every step of the way, Scott and I have been involved in this from day one, and what we kept saying is we want a good deal for the state of Wisconsin. And ultimately, when we looked at it and we looked at the amount of capital expenditures and the commitment on the company's side relative to the employment and all of the other things that go with it that you cannot quantify, we truly can sit here today and look at it and say that Wisconsin got a good deal for a lot of money. There's no doubt about it, but there's an incredible commitment on the part of the company, and the opportunity for the state of Wisconsin is limitless.
Secretary Scott Neitzel, Secretary Mark Hogan, it's great to have you on the program today. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you for having us.
And you can see my entire conversation with Secretaries Neitzel and Hogan on our website. Why they're confident Foxconn won't walk away from the deal, what happens if technology changes, and why the urgency to seal the deal. You'll find that on the Upfront section of WISN.com. Later on Upfront, vote counting in the state Senate. Are there indeed enough votes to pass the Foxconn deal? But first, a new Democratic candidate in the race for governor. I'll be talking with State Representative Dana Walks about his path to the nomination and the job.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.